there remains one bastion of truth amidst the confusion. One beacon of light shining through the murky fog of spin and Islamophobic propaganda. That's right, it's the MP Radio Security Council, the final frontier in the fight for freedom and fairness. I give you the Security Council.
أبدا لن نحيد أبدا لن نحيد أبدا لن نحيد عن خطى الإيمان دربنا درب قويم دربنا درب قويم بالهدى القرآني أبدا لن نحيد أبدا لن نحيد أبدا لن نحيد عن خطى الإيمان دربنا درب قويم دربنا درب قويم بالهدى القرآني سائر في طريق الحق يا جند الله.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. You are listening to the Security Council and this is Middle Path Radio. I'm your brother Ahmed and with me as usual is my co-host brother Khabbab. Assalamu alaikum brother Khabbab.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah, not too bad. How you doing?
I'm good, jazakallahu khair. Jazakallahu khair. It feels like a really long week since our last show. Did we miss a show in the middle?
No,
we didn't.
I think I've missed a show in the middle. I think I was off.
Yes, you was not well. What happened last week? Me and the producer kind of dealt with it, but I don't know. It just feels like it was a really long. I always look forward to doing the Security Council. That's the thing, you see, and that's probably why it feels. Plus, I think this weekend we didn't have much going on due to the Eid festivities. So say a belated Eid Mubarak to all our listeners, you know, كل عام وأنتم بخير تقبل الله منا ومنكم صالح الأعمال. So I hope everybody enjoyed a very lovely weekend. I hope you did, brother Khabbab, this weekend.
Alhamdulillah, of course, it's always good to celebrate.
Spend time with the family as well.
Exactly, indeed. So alhamdulillah, it was a good weekend, I think, and on top of that, I think not only that, between Eid, a lot of other news events were kind of sandwiched in between, and of course, there's some of the things we're going to be talking about in today's show.
Indeed, there are a number of items that I have. I'm not going to read the entire list out, but of course, the main topic really is, if I narrow it down and overlap them into one bigger ball of topics, it will be really mostly to do with Syria and issues pertaining to Syria, related to Syria. Say, for example, the main subject of Syria, what's going on right now, the airstrikes, the impact on the ground, the reality of the airstrikes, the agenda and the mission objectives of these American-led airstrikes in Syria. But related to that would be some other news. For example, again, Syria-related, because Brother Moazzam Begg, he was arrested and put behind bars in the UK for the last 7 to 8 months, and he's been released. This is huge news, by the way. Okay, so we're going to talk about that a little bit as well. We're going to also just give some stats about any civilian casualties as a result of the bombings by America and her allies in Syria. And we'll be talking about
also the beheading of Alan Henning, which
of course
took place the night of Eid, isn't it? If I'm correct, or the day
Friday,
before
Friday evening. Yes, it did. Yeah.
So again, these are things all pertaining to Syria, as well as
we'll mix things up. You know, obviously, we slightly related, but only related because these guys were talking about not Syria per se, but ISIS. They were talking about that, and there's Bill Maher I'm talking about here. We're gonna, probably play a little bit from if the producer can line up a few of those tracks for us. Bill Maher versus Ben Affleck. So we're gonna play some of that and talk a little bit, give some comments on that.
Yeah,
brother Khabbab.
Of course, I think I'm hoping most of our listeners actually watch that interview, but if you never haven't, we will obviously be playing that and dissecting that, and
as always we will be critiquing the usual kind of bias and hypocrisy that we see in mainstream media when it comes to, for example, Islamophobia, and also when it comes to portraying Muslims as extremists or terrorists unfairly. So those are a variety of different things that we'll be talking about. I could go into detail, but that would be really just ruining the whole thing. There are a couple of red herrings here, and that is pertaining to Django of the Week. Okay, so Django of the Week, as you know, we do this every week. Hashtag Django of the Week. So,
and that's a Django without a D.
Without a D. This is not the legendary Django with the D, but a silent D. This is just another Django, a Django of a different kind. Okay, we've already given an explanation as to what this Django is. And once you find out who the current nominees are for Django of the Week, you'd realize that this is really nothing to do with the Django who was unchained. Not
Indeed, and I think you can definitely go onto our Twitter, which is at Middle Path Radio, and you'll be able to put in your votes. They're all up there at the moment. The 3 candidates for the Django of the Week.
I think already some people have put in their votes already. So the votes are already counting. We need to see some more. Let's hear some additional nominees. If you think we've missed somebody this last week who should really make the list for Django of the Week, then obviously by all means hashtag Django of the Week and say nominee, and then add the name basically, or just add the name even if it's not on the list. We'll get the message that okay, you want to add somebody to the list, right? So we've got 3 people who've been listed here, and we'll be going into their stories through the duration of our show. Okay, so Yasmin Alibi Brown. We've also got Bill Maher, of course. We spoke about him just a second ago, and we've got
the legendary.
he came out of nowhere. This man, right? And he's made He's made an entrance.
He's stolen the show.
Perhaps not for the right reasons. Let's just put it that way. And he's he's Mufassal Islam, and yes, you haven't heard of him. But you probably will be hearing about him if you haven't already. If you're not on Facebook,
and you will not be forgetting him either.
Yeah, it's not going to be very easy to forget, and for sure we will not be playing his clip on air. But there's no way we can do that. So some of the things we got, but we didn't tell you that we have a very important segment of our show today. Yes, there's some light humor and stuff, but we're covering a lot of serious subjects as we do every week, and we've had several guests in the past. We've had call-ins with Dr. Hazam Tamimi. We've had call-ins from Brother Dilli Hussein. We've had who's also a journalist. We've had Black Rights campaigner Brother Trevor Hakim speaking. We've also had one of the members, what should I say, somebody from Q who spoke control orders as he himself was orders. So we've had a variety of different, and today we've got basically a very special guest who we will be having online live on air for you, and it's Brother Moazzam Begg, who's a freelance journalist. Okay, that's Moazzam Begg. You can go and check out his profile and follow him on Twitter. It's at Moazzam Begg, that's ASSEDBAIG, and I'll give you a slightly more detailed introduction to him as soon as we have him on air. What we normally do is we do this introduction and we go for a break, and then we go straight after the break. We get stuck into all of our topics. So before we go to our break, I need to let all our listeners know that the number is 07 477 080 248. That's 07 477 080 248. And as Brother Khabbab was mentioned, what's our Twitter?
It's at Middle Path Radio, and obviously the hashtag that we're using at the moment is obviously Django of the Week.
Django of the Week, or hashtag Security Council, because you are listening to the Security Council. We've also got our Facebook account. We have a YouTube channel for you all to catch up on shows that you missed, especially the live shows. They're all uploaded either tonight or the following morning earliest, and you'll have the opportunity to catch up.
So please do call in, text in, WhatsApp, and join in with the discussion of the show.
I think these are hot topics. Everybody's talking about them. People who are not Muslim, they're talking about it. They're setting the agenda. They are steering the narrative on this. And I know Muslims feel strongly about this. I know Muslims care. When I speak to people, they're very vocal. So like Brother Khabbab said, by all means, give us a call or send us a text message or WhatsApp. The number is 07 477 080 248. We'll see you after the break. Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. You are listening to the Security Council. This is Middle Path Radio, and I'm your brother Ahmed, joined also in the studio by co-host brother Khabbab.
Assalamu alaikum, welcome back listeners.
Welcome back. Hashtag Django of the Week. Get on Twitter right now, brothers and sisters. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, give us your votes for who you think should be Django of the Week. But that's not all what the Security Council is about. Security Council talks about a lot of serious stuff, and we are talking again this week about Syria, because Syria is still a very pressing and always developing issue right now, especially since a number of things have happened. The execution of Alan Henning, that's actually happened right now, and we've also got the new airstrikes that's wreaking havoc in that region. So before I actually take our guest caller today, I'm going to play a very short clip from one of the BBC journalists. His name is Ian Pannell, so all credits go to BBC and their journalism work that they've done there. And he will give us a short synopsis as to what's happened. This was played on Radio 4 earlier yesterday.
What effect is it all having on IS? A spokesman for Kurdish fighters told The Guardian today, each time a jet approaches, they leave their open positions, they scatter and hide. The Syrian town of Kobani, close to the Turkish border, said to be close to falling to Islamic State. An IS flag has been seen flying there. Ground support is being provided by the United States. In addition to the air attacks, America has vetted a number of armed groups, but as Ian Pannell reports from the Turkey-Syria border, that may not amount to as much as it sounds.
With one knee on the ground and an eye locked on a government tank, a Syrian rebel opens fire. The wire-guided missile twists and turns through the air, shattering its target. This is one of more than 100 American-made anti-tank weapons supplied to rebel groups in Syria who've been hand-picked to fight Islamic State. In effect, they'll be President Obama's boots on the ground. Now, the US is promising much more as it vows to degrade and destroy Islamic State.
Together with our partners, America is training and equipping the Syrian opposition to be a counterweight to the terrorists of ISIL and the brutality of the Assad regime.
But when coalition planes launched their mission in Syria last month, no one saw fit to tell President Obama's new allies. For the past few weeks, the air campaign against Islamic State has been flying missions, seeking out targets and destroying militant bases. But the ground strategy is barely formed. Inside northern Syria, a rebel commander in camouflage trousers thanks a motley crowd of followers for their support. Major Ahmed al-Saud is the leader of the 13th Division, one of those moderate groups vetted by America that's been promised weapons and training.
We haven't got the things we've asked for.
And what is that?
The international community must help us bring an end to the regime. We want them to stand by us. So far, they haven't decided. We have nothing, not even weapons.
But Islamic State does have weapons. One of their recent videos shows groups of fighters advancing across barren ground, opening fire on a Kurdish village. The Syrian rebels forced the militants to retreat earlier this year, but after their success in Iraq, they're back, better armed and funded than ever. The Americans have been meeting rebel commanders here in Turkey to try to halt the march of Islamic State. The fighters have been very clear about what they want. Not training, but supplies and support, and immediately. And they've been very angry and very vocal about what they say is the failure of coalition airstrikes to halt government attacks against the people.
Look, I wish they wouldn't say some of the things they've been saying publicly.
Adam Kinzinger is a US congressman who's been meeting opposition commanders in Turkey.
There's a lot of concern among the FSA. Sure, ISIS is their enemy and they want to crush them, but they see the biggest enemy as Assad. Another area they have a lot of concern, there hasn't been a lot of communication between our airstrikes and where they are on the ground. So it's not really a situation where they're acting as forward air controllers. They're almost as surprised by the strikes as ISIS is.
There have been some protests in rebel-held areas, partly driven by anger over coalition strikes against groups other than Islamic State that enjoy local support. Reports of civilian deaths have also brought people onto the streets. America has denied this, but what matters is how things seem on ground.
So these are the borders, aren't they? So this is Jarablus, and this is Ain al-Arab.
This has some local commanders worried. Major Darwish is part of a secretive operations room run by the Friends of Syria group, including the US and the UK, and rebel fighters.
Our support will be seriously damaged if the West doesn't support the revolution as well. People are against these airstrikes. Today we have protests. Tomorrow they might attack us because they think we are working with the West.
While the world focuses on Islamic State, gruesome beheadings and the coalition air campaign.
Assalamu alaikum again. So you heard here that Ian Pannell from the BBC reporting for Radio 4 there, and he's done quite a comprehensive bit of journalism there, reporting from inside Syria. We've got freelance journalist brother Moazzam Begg on the line, and those of you who don't know him, I know he doesn't need much of an introduction. Brother Moazzam Begg's a freelance journalist. He's done work in the past with the BBC, and he's also an author, I believe, or has done some work writing for Huffington Post. He's also currently working with an international news agency. Brother Moazzam Begg actually travelled extensively around the world for his journalism work, ranging from different parts of the world, from Palestine to Somalia, Pakistan, Kashmir, to even places like the Central African Republic. And I'm sure I've missed a number of places that he has also been to. So we're really grateful that Brother Moazzam has taken his time out from his busy schedule to come and speak to us live on air on Middle Path Radio. Brother Moazzam, this is Ahmed. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam, Ahmed.
Are you hearing us clearly, Brother Moazzam?
Yes, I can hear you clearly.
Jazakallah khair one more time for taking the time out to come and speak to us about the developments in Syria. So just briefly before we go on, we've just played a short clip. I know you probably weren't able to hear that very well, but it was just explaining how the US airstrikes currently taking place in Syria, were kind of alienating different rebel groups, and the public the public opinion is changing, where a lot of the airstrikes are causing some civilian casualties, and a lot of the Syrian people are seeing the rebel groups to have taken sides with the American power, and kind of getting distracted from their main goal, which is Bashar al-Assad. So if you're just going to give us some of your thoughts exactly what's happened, because it's a major development now with the US airstrikes. What exactly is happening in there? It's very complicated. A lot of our listeners, and there's so many layers. If you could just tell us, give us your view on what's currently happening in Syria.
I'll try my best. The thing is that since these airstrikes, the US and obviously the UK had joined in. The UK joining in is more symbolic than actually practical, because the US doesn't need Britain to join in any airstrikes. They're fully capable of carrying these out themselves. But what essentially it has done, because we know that some rebel groups are fighting against each other, but since the airstrikes, the U.S. has also not only targeted, the so-called Islamic State of Iraq or Levant, or whatever you want to call them, but it's also targeted other groups that were fighting Bashar al-Assad, such as the Nusra Front and other groups. Now, what that has done is actually changed the mood on the ground. It's actually caused these groups that were fighting amongst each other to actually say, hold on a second. We won't fight each other because now we have a common enemy, and now you see other groups that were fighting Bashar al-Assad that have come out and actually said, have threatened the U.S. And this has all come about by the fact that Bashar al-Assad has killed hundreds of thousands of people, and there were no airstrikes against him. And as soon as a little-known group manages to take a large area of Iraq and Syria, and they behead, one journalist and an aid worker, or two journalists and an aid worker. The U.S. is very keen to get involved. And actually, there are some people who are saying that it has nothing to do with the Islamic State of Iraq and Levant's beheadings or taking over large areas of land. Actually, what it has more to do with is how close they're getting to Erbil, which is a Kurdish area, a Kurdish controlled area, because there's many American companies there.
Right.
And they actually threaten that business, the oil business there. So
so they've got commercial interests in this more than a humanitarian or a altruistic objective there.
I think we have to be realistic. I think the idea that the U.S. gets involved for humanitarian reasons for much of the global South is a facade. Right. No one believes it. I've traveled all around the world, and no one ever believes that Western intervention, at least in the global South, is for altruistic or humanitarian reasons. There's always a financial interest or some sort of interest in terms of resources, or making sure that the flow of money and resources is coming through. And these are some of the kind of major issues. The reason why they get involved. Because let's face it, in terms of, for example, David Cameron, sorry if I'm ranting on too much.
No.
David Cameron says that Islamic State in Iraq and Levant is a threat to the UK, or people going to Syria are a threat to the UK. Well, we have to look at this and say, how are they a threat to the UK? Were they more of a threat than the Nazis when the Nazis were in France and there was a threat of invasion to the UK? No, they're not. Yet we have more draconian legislation now. We have more proposed draconian legislation now than we have ever had in the history of modern history of Britain. So, we have to question this, and these people in power have to be held to account. And unfortunately, many of the mainstream media are not doing this, or they're not in a position to do this, to hold the politicians to account for the things that they're saying and doing.
Jazakallah khair, some very valuable points there, and definitely that's what we try and do on this show, is to challenge those kind of challenge the status quo and the so-called mainstream narrative, and really try to hold to account those that are in power. One of the questions that we'd like to raise with you, especially since you've already touched on it a little bit as well, is the hostages that are being laid out as the very premise or the justification for going to war again to Iraq. I don't know, is it the third time or the fourth time? Do you think the Americans and the British have really exhausted all their avenues in trying to get those journalists and aid workers released, or is that just a smokescreen? Is this just really an excuse to really just go in the Middle East again and get metal in there?
Well, this is the third time the UK has bombed Iraq, or fourth time actually in the last 100 years. When Winston Churchill was colonial secretary, they gassed Iraqis that were revolting against British rule. We had the first Gulf War, we've had the second Gulf War, and now this. And in terms of the hostages, I think you make a valid point, or it's a very interesting question. Have they exhausted all avenues? And if you look at Turkey, for example, they managed to get their hostages released. And the question is, what are these hostages worth? How much value can you put on a human life? And already the revelations today, Moazzam Begg, speaking to BBC Radio 4, said that he had offered to send a public message in Arabic, dressed in an orange jumpsuit, to the Islamic State of Iraq and Levant, reaching out to al-Baghdadi himself, who had been held by the Americans, so a half message in the language of those people, not in English language like we've seen in Independence, these imams signing letters, but in Arabic, reaching out and asking and actually saying, look, I will intervene and try to get these people released. What does it take? What's a human life worth? And the truth is that bombing Iraq and Syria has actually led the Islamic State of Iraq and Levant to execute these people. And we can argue all we want that they're barbarous and that they're, you can't talk with them. But the truth is, everyone has a logic. Every group has some sort of logic and reason, even if it is flawed, even if we don't agree with that logic. But if you really want those people released, you have to talk to them. There's no two ways about it. You can't say, you threaten them and denounce them. You have to talk to them, and you have to say, look, what do you want for us to really, give back these people who are innocent?
This is an interesting point that you're making there, Brother Asad, about talking to them, because it's really they've made this argument that we're going there to fight the extremists, the extreme of the right. They're the liberals, they're the free world, and here they are. They're not interested in doing any kind of dialogue or any kind of talking amongst all the different parties, regardless of how they may despise one another's methods and actions and goals. Here they are, just like you said, they don't seem to be interested in even coming round to the table to even recognise the demands of these different groups.
Sometimes they don't even know how to talk to them, and that's been the case with states, for example, like in terms of negotiations and discussions with Iran in the past. They don't even know how to approach these people. But in terms of people in Syria, they should be able to approach them because they've been helping groups, they've been talking to groups, they've been funding groups, they've been giving them aid. So they should have avenues in terms of negotiations. And this is
even worse.
How much
Carry on, sorry.
So the question needs to be raised, and I think that they're trying to kind of, I don't want to say cover up, but they're trying to put this on the back burner. But the question needs to be raised, what did you do to get these hostages released? And you can say that, okay, these are negotiations and our tactics are, we don't make them public. But I think we need answers, and the answer is, right. How much value did you put on that human life? Because I know if it was me and if it was my family member, I would have done anything possible to have that person released. And I'm sure it's the same of the Henning family and anybody else that's got their loved ones there.
Absolutely.
But this kind of arrogant stance that we don't negotiate with terrorists. I'm sorry.
It's costing British lives, basically, in the end.
But the thing is that the history shows us that they've negotiated with everybody. There's no one that they haven't negotiated.
You're just saying that,
and they're talking to the Taliban.
But they've released David Bolam, who's a British hostage in Libya, just ago. And apparently money did change hands in the release of David Bolam, who was a hostage in Libya. So, on one hand...
this is Somalia. And the same has happened in Somalia, and they said they wouldn't negotiate with the Taliban, and now they negotiate with the Taliban. The British negotiated their withdrawal from Basra, where they were essentially forced out with their tails tucked between their legs. So the truth is that they do talk to people and they do negotiate, but Absolutely. The political will has to be there, and the value of that person's life has to be there. Let me put it this way. The Islamic State, the so-called Islamic State, what would the UK do? Would the UK put more value on his life and having him released more than anybody else? Would they risk him getting killed? And I think they would actually open up negotiations, and they'll say, name your price.
Exactly.
and give him back. And I think that, we need to...
And the British public would fully understand doing that. I mean, they wouldn't be criticised for doing that. I mean, you've given us a complete, different angle where a lot of our listeners, myself included, are not looking at it, at the issue from that angle. I really appreciate that. One of the final questions that we've got for you, Brother Asad, from the unique position that you journalists have access to, places of conflict like this, is the question of Assad. Everybody's forgetting about the elephant in the room, which is Assad, and he's the very reason why Syria is destabilized and why these rebel groups even came to existence. How do you think? How should I put this? Where does Assad stand? Does he stand to gain as a result of these US-led airstrikes in Syria?
I think so. I think that essentially when they're bombing rebel groups, some who are engaged in fighting against Bashar al-Assad, he's ultimately going to benefit from this. If you go back just over a year, he looks like he was losing it. Then his military kind of, with the backing of Hezbollah and Iran, has kind of gained the upper hand. And there were some areas that they were struggling to take over, but now the bombing is helping Bashar al-Assad. Whether intentionally or unintentionally, I don't know. But I don't think that if the West had bombed Assad, that would have been helpful. But this, now that they have intervened, it's sending out a confused message. We have, I think that the global South is looking at this and saying, hold on, who is more brutal? Is it Bashar al-Assad or this group? Who is more of a threat? Bashar al-Assad or this group? And every time the West gets involved now, they don't have the moral high ground in terms of the eyes of the global South. And also that no one trusts them. One trusts them. I was in the Central African Republic, and the people generally, for example, the Muslim minority there, didn't trust the French at all. And in many other countries where they are minorities, whether Muslim or not, they really don't trust the West. And it's because of the colonial legacy, it's because of what they perceive as double standards and the hypocrisy, and also not thick. And they realize that sometimes the countries are very, very rich in resources, but the people are very poor. And the only people that seem to be making money are the ones at the top.
Finally, last question before we say farewell to you, Brother Asad. The question is, we heard the huge news about the release, and you mentioned Moazzam Begg earlier. Moazzam Begg got released with no charge after 8 months in prison. What do you make of that whole fiasco?
It's an interesting one because many of us journalists have interviewed him, have spoken to him, and the fact that everyone knew that he had gone to Syria. He had written a blog about it. He had said that he had spoken to security services. And sometimes it's hard to tell whether it's complete incompetence by the security services, by West Midlands Police and MI5. It's difficult. But one thing is for sure, that the British state has been exposed once again for holding someone in prison for 7 to 8 months, away from their family, then dropping charges, saying, "Oh, there was information that we didn't know about." This is the UK. We're in the 21st century. What do you mean there was information between your security services that you didn't know about? Pick up the phone, email. There's so many ways of different communications, and it took you 7 or 8 months to get to that information. You've taken away 7 months of this guy's life. And again, I think many journalists and many people that know Moazzam and that have interviewed him will say that this guy is so humble, and the way that he deals with this stuff patiently is unbelievable. Because if I'd been locked up for 7 months, and then I'd be really angry. I'd be so angry that 7 months away from my family, from my work, income, I'd be livid. And I think that there's some questions that need to be answered, and now he's causing a lot of problems for the state now. There's questions have been asked of the Home Secretary, there's questions been asked of the Foreign Office, there's questions been asked of the Prime Minister, and the Prime Minister has directly addressed Moazzam Begg, the question of Moazzam Begg now, and the pressure is on them. And it's interesting how one man one man from Birmingham, a Muslim man, just by his words and his work, is shining the light on the British establishment that's making them very, very uncomfortable.
Mashallah.
Has exposed the security services, and not that he's set out to do that. He's just doing his thing, and because they're standing in his way at every turn, they're exposing themselves.
Jazakallah khair. Jazakallah for enlightening a lot of our listeners, including ourselves, the presenters. We've had a little chat before you came on air. We're very keen to have you back on our show, inshallah, and probably be in the studio with us sometime soon in the near future. I hope that's okay, and that's still on the table, bi'idhnillah.
Of course, yeah, of course, just anytime I can chat to you guys, I'll be more than happy as long as I have time, inshallah.
Jazakallah khair, brother Asad. Hopefully we hear from you soon, inshallah. Take care of yourself.
Inshallah, you guys too.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Wa alaikum assalam. So there we heard from brother Asad Begg. I know it's time very much for going for a break very soon, but just to summarize, he talked about several different issues there, and again, I'm very grateful that he took his time out. I know he's a very busy journalist. As you heard, he's been to different parts of the world, but he's explained again that there could be some commercial interest as to why the Americans are doing this. But one point that, whether I agree with that or not, may be it's a separate matter, because I think they've got other reasons, and those are Islamophobic reasons. Those are reasons maybe rooted a little bit in racial motives and stuff like that, religiously instigated motives. That's a minority view perhaps, but he's given us a different angle on that there's always a commercial angle, and at least that's what some people are suggesting.
There's always been a commercial motive in all of the kind of interventions, by the West.
Acts of violence and war,
acts of terrorism, state-funded terrorism, yeah. So this is exactly what it is. So each case has always been, some motivation, and it's always generally been of a financial nature. I think it just also happened to be the fact that their common enemy was also going to get eliminated at the same time as well as them making money. So really, for them, it was killing two birds with one stone. So I do agree with your point, which is that a lot of the recent, more so kind of invasions and attacks that have taken place have been purely to kind of destroy any sort of Muslim strength or
Muslim resurgence, unity.
Exactly, of course. Everything with the Arab Spring, and how they managed to crush it without having to physically actually get there. But whether it's by proxy or by direct intervention, this is what they have been doing. And so obviously they're crushing that. At the same time, they're getting economic gains, and it's always been economic gains at the forefront, because as we know that this is their motivation. Their desire and motivation is dunya.
That's right, exactly. And so the ideology is kind of goes hand in hand and is rooted with their economic interests. So perhaps there's no contradiction there at all with what we're actually saying here. We're just describing the same situation in different words. So he talked about that, and I mean, what he did make clear, which we all agree on, is that they've got in there, and what they've done now is actually unified a lot of the rebel groups who were actually at odds with each other, and they were actually fighting amongst themselves, these rebels. Okay, so now what's happened as a result of these US airstrikes is these rebel groups have actually
they put those differences aside. Ranks. They put those differences aside because at the moment they've got an overarching common enemy, which at the moment is...
And why is that?
It's purely because what's happening, and what has been very clearly stated, since the US airstrikes have been launched, more non-ISIS people, including civilians and other rebels, have been killed as opposed to ISIS. So, that quite very much clearly shows that their objective isn't ISIS. ISIS was just a pretext. Yes. They're going in there for a greater kill.
But I also think, this is an interesting question. I mean, some ISIS supporters, I've seen them say on Twitter, for example, that that's the reason why. That's the only reason why you guys are against the US now, is because you're the ones who on the receiving end of the bombs as well. But is that fair? I know some of these groups out there who that the Americans are bombing. They're very rooted in their religion, And as far as I know, in the Islamic religion, you're not really allowed to take pleasure in the bombing of fellow Muslims, as deplorable as those Muslims might be. So I think they would have been ideologically motivated, those Islamic groups anyway.
Without doubt, as well, the fact was that they were dealing with the issue within their own means, which is that it was a problem within the Muslims. Yeah. ISIS popped up, and the rebel groups were, in dialogue and then fighting and so forth that took place. But they were dealing with the matter in whichever way capability they had, and they were never asking for a U.S. intervention to kind of stop them and and kill them and so forth. They were going to deal with the matter, so therefore it's a Muslim issue, and Muslims should deal with Muslim issues. It's quite, they've always talked about, Muslims just stand up and take ownership and condemnation. Well, hang on a minute, Muslims are dealing with the issue. You guys just back off. You don't need to, get your hands, involved. So stay out.
Keep your lesson from Iraq.
Keep your nose out of our business. This is what it was. So
Somalia,
Black Hawk Down was a
damning lesson for them. So going on, what's it, Delta Force, and what's the other Charlie Sheen comedy movies? I don't know what they're called, but they're like in the 90s. These old films. I mean, that's what they were doing in the not just in the Muslim world. This was happening in places in Africa and where they're not Muslims out there. And this is what they were doing. It was all the Wild West. It was still like the cowboy, Chuck Norris, Clint Eastwood maneuvers going on, and they think they can still do that. Unfortunately, a lot of Clint Eastwoods are born in parts of Africa and in many parts of the Middle East.
They get a licking,
and they get a good licking, I'm afraid. And that's just the rule of warfare. You go out there, you're gonna give some, and you're gonna have to take some. Just like any boxer enters into the ring, whether he's the champ, whether he, flies like a butterfly and stings like a bee, he still takes a few hits, So we're going to go to a break right now, inshallah. And after the break, we're going to come back and talk about a few things that Brother Assad actually highlighted for us. And they are whether Assad is actually, the Bashar al-Assad, is benefiting from this, and whether enough was done to save these hostages, because this is the very excuse that the world has used to go and wreak violence in the Middle East once more. So we'll be back straight after this short break. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. This is Brother Ahmed, and you're listening to the Security Council on Middle Path Radio. Brother Khabbab.
Assalamu alaikum, welcome back, listeners. Just before our break, we had the well-known prominent journalist, Moazzam Begg, who joined us via the phone. And he was obviously talking about many different topics, all pertaining to Syria. Mm-hmm. Just a couple of things that he actually mentioned, which I kind of want to just tap into, which obviously we did kind of briefly talk about Brother Moazzam, and how obviously recently he was released without charge, or all charges were dropped, you could say, against him. But today he's actually had a few interviews with the BBC, and I think yesterday he had some with CNN and ITV. But a lot of these interviews, he was in relation to Alan Henning. So it kind of, in terms of tying in, really...
But just before you tell us about Alan Henning, Moazzam Begg, he was in prison before.
Yes.
As well.
All over Guantanamo.
So his name really became well known because of the fact that he was one of the Brits, detained and imprisoned, basically mistreated in Guantanamo Bay.
Of course.
How long was he there? Do you know roughly? I can't remember.
He was taken there in 2002. He was picked up in January 2002 in Pakistan.
Yeah.
And then from there he was, I think in February 2002, he was then taken to Guantanamo Bay. And
years.
He stayed there 3 years, if I'm correct.
Yeah. So that's a huge, a long time. And again, they didn't find him guilty of anything.
Of course, he was cleared without any charge, no charge.
So the Americans did that to him. He came back to his home country, the UK. And surprise, surprise, the British are doing the same thing to him. And he just got released again, completely cleared of any charges. He's completely innocent.
And obviously there's many things that I would like to say on that issue alone.
Okay.
And that would take a whole show.
Bring it back to Alan Henning.
I think the point he was mentioning, Moazzam, was that what he was trying to do in order to secure the release of Alan Henning. And it kind of really exposes how the British did squat. They did nothing. They did nothing. Absolutely nothing to really release Alan Henning. And even some of the stuff that I've been listening to, the interviews of
they probably
Alan Henning's brother was even mentioning what they did. When he was captured, the British government told Alan Henning's family, be quiet, don't say nothing. It was only the moment his images appeared in the beheading of I forgot which
Sotlov, Stephen
Sotlov,
yeah.
When he appeared in that video, that hang on, everybody started talking and coming out.
Excuse me, that was an American. It was David Haynes. That was
that's right.
David Haynes.
So then everything started coming out the cracks, and then everybody started talking, and now the British government are interested. And Brother Moazzam mentioned how in January 2013 is when Alan Henning was kidnapped, and in January 2013. Those brothers who had travelled, who arranged the convoy and stuff, they went and spoke to Brother Moazzam, said, can you do anything to try and secure his release? He then started to get things together in order to try and secure the release. And he mentions an interview. We would have played the interview, but it's too, obviously it's going to be too long to kind of go through.
Yeah.
But, something we will be posting later up on our social media, which you can obviously get a link from. But he mentions in that interview with the BBC, and as I was saying with I think ITV and CNN, that he went to the foreign secretary, Mr. Burt, something Burt, I forgot his name anyway. He's the shadow or the former.
Nobody knows them. Nobody cares.
But anyway, they'll all be wherever the title is. But he went to him just to explain to him, look, I have been approached by the friends of Alan Henning. I will be speaking to certain individuals who are connected to ISIS. So it's just like I'm letting you know that I will be doing that, and this is the purpose I'm doing it for. It's not to think I'm doing it for any other reasons. And when they turned around and said, "Oh well, thank you, Moazzam, but we don't really need your help," and as simple as that. I said, "We don't really need your help." And then he was saying how that they will. Moazzam saying that I did not come here to ask your permission or help. I'm just going to do it. I'm just letting you know that I will contact certain, shady characters in your books. That just to make sure this is the reason why I'm doing it. And he said within a couple of weeks of that, before he was able to really progress, he was then arrested.
Yeah,
and he was.
That wasn't the only reason why he went to Syria. I mean,
of course,
he explained that he went to Syria, and he doesn't make no qualms about it. He said before you guys decided that suddenly the rebels are bad. When you guys actually thought the rebels were good and you were supporting rebels at least by your word, I was there actually supporting. When you were sending them aid, so-called aid, I was there doing the same thing, non-lethal aid. I was doing the exact same thing.
So it was coinciding at the same time.
He didn't make any, he didn't try and beat around the bush. He said, yes, I went there.
He was very much clear and apparent in terms of what he was doing.
Yeah, he made it very clear, and he informed them, I'm going there for this purpose. Do you have a problem? They didn't say no.
And in fact, like I said, one of the reasons why the whole case apparently was dropped, the fact that the evidence came forward from the MI5,
was on board.
Which was that he had his meeting with his lawyers, with the MI5, to say that this is the reason why I'm going. Will I be prevented from going? They gave the green light. He then went. So it was very clear from the image.
He took a generator, something that gives people power. That's not a gun. That doesn't explode. So this is non-lethal aid. That's exactly what it is. So he took a generator. Funnily enough, another aid worker like Moazzam Begg, called Alan Henning, took a generator to Syria.
Actually, the whole thing, as we heard, I think was it a couple of weeks back with Brother Majid Freeman when he was on the show, that he went out and he bought a generator, and then he said physically, I want to deliver this generator myself on the next convoy, and then he went on that convoy. I think the first convoy before he was obviously taken hostage. So again, I don't see what the difference is between this man and...
I'll tell you the difference. Alan Henning's a white guy, and if you kill a white guy, then we will go to kill you guys.
No, that isn't true.
That is just wrong. Probably an excuse then, yeah.
That is always just an excuse. Of course, yes, it's become very much clear that Muslims are less of a human, you can say, or less valuable, or their blood is less valuable in the sights of the Western governments. But even we've seen many times that they don't really care. For them, it's just like, if it falls in line with their interests and their needs, then you are of importance to us. Just like we saw about the whole "Bring Back Our Girls" hashtag thing.
That's right.
Like I've mentioned it a few times already, but we can go back to that. Which
it was politically convenient for them to suddenly pretend like they actually care so much, for Alan Henning.
So that's what it was. He kind of fell in line with that, and so they kind of picked up on that. And in all honesty,
I'm just exposing the double standards here, exactly. Even in their rhetoric. Because on one hand, they're saying, Moazzam, you're taking a generator out to Syria. That's illegal. Sorry, mate, you can't do that. You're going to go to prison for 7-8 months. But Alan Henning, on the other hand, isn't doing so. We've got a little quick question here. But before I take that question, I just also wanted to add another reason that Moazzam went out there for, and that's probably one of the reasons why the British intelligence apparatus and those people in government, outside of just the intelligence apparatus, those individuals were not very happy for him to be going out there for. And it wasn't to do with terrorism. Rather, it was to do with exposing the British government's involvement in torture and practicing torture, or for sending British civilians, British citizens out to these foreign countries where they do torture them, and that the British are aware that this is what happens in the custody of these foreign governments and agencies. So he became aware of many individuals who had this experience, who had reported that the British were involved, or at least were complicit in their torture. And so he was going there compiling a dossier of proof to expose the British government's complicitness in that practice. So that's another reason. And he already told them that actually, you want to sit with me before I go? That's fine, I can sit with you, but maybe you're not going to be very happy to hear exactly the nature of my trip, the purpose of my trip to Syria. So they failed to mention that when they arrested him. Okay, so the question we got in the studio, a text come in, didn't say who it was, but it says here, it's interesting that the radio presenter who interviewed Moazzam, suggested that Moazzam Begg was still not necessarily innocent yet, because he did not go to court, i.e. the whole case got dropped before it went to trial. So he did not go to court, even though he was released without charge. So this lady...
She was actually trying to pick up the point that when Moazzam said, I was cleared, he goes, oh, you weren't cleared, in a court of law, the case was just dropped.
Yeah, but, so he hasn't gone to trial.
And he used the analogy, which was that if I was going to be a boxer getting ready for a big international fight, and then just before the fight, the opponent just throws in the towel, it's still a boxing match, I've still won.
A victory.
So the same kind of concept here, which is that...
But even worse is, I think what the text person here is saying here is that look at the assumption that unless it goes to trial and then the judge says, you sir are not guilty, Moazzam, until it goes to that stage you're still presumed guilty.
So let's say Abu Qatada then. So he's gone to court and he's been cleared of any wrongdoing and is completely innocent. Have you heard anybody say he's innocent now from the West? Have you heard Theresa May now saying, yes, we admit we made a mistake and we're really sorry, Mr. Abu Qatada, and you're welcome back to our country.
Give him some compensation to make up for all the years.
I doubt that very much. So, it's clear double standards, and it's just a load of nonsense as far as I'm concerned.
So we are, congratulating Moazzam Begg on his victory and also on his release.
And one thing, just
egg on the faces of Theresa May and all of the other, what should I say, stooges of the government who are out there running, spearheading this witch hunt against a minority community in their country. And it's one of the staples of a so-called democracy that you are measured according to the way you treat your minorities, and we can see how they're treating the minorities in this country, and that is a standard of what the UK's gotten to right now.
Indeed, and it's just one of the things that, just to add, just before I kind of try and shift it a bit, which was Brother Moazzam also mentioned the fact that he was ready for his show in court. He actually felt more gutted, up for it. That he didn't get to court. He was
quite
very
anticlimactic
much,
for him.
So
I'm
he was
sure.
just like,
7 months he waited.
He waited, but yeah,
that's why he sounded a bit deflated at the interview. And as Brother Asad Begg, the journalist who spoke to us earlier, he said, if it was me, I'd have been livid. And it's true. Then Brother Moazzam's got certain qualities.
And if you look at Brother Moazzam, it comes out straight away he's already, he's hit the ground running, as you can say, in terms of what he's been doing. But just a key point, I just want to wrap up with what I initially started with in terms of Brother Moazzam, in terms of what he has done. Recently, I just literally read today, Cage, which is the organisation which Brother Moazzam is the outreach director for. They released the letter that he had drafted, which he wasn't unable to send to the leader of ISIS. Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, and showing the efforts that he made. And he was mentioning how he would be able to connect to them purely because he was a Guantanamo detainee. He was a prisoner of the Americans, just like Baghdadi was a prisoner of the Americans. He was in the orange jumpsuit, waiting for execution.
But why does this matter? Why are you mentioning this?
You're making a relation. You're relating to them. You're trying to get level ground with them and make them understand. Because sometimes you've got many people out there that say, oh yeah, we'll condemn ISIS. And
the question I think a lot of people that I'm trying to paraphrase for you right now is, why does that matter? The fact that he was trying to write a letter, is Brother Moazzam trying to appease the government and say, "Yo, guys, I'm with you lot." Here.
The point is, he tried more because honestly,
or is the point? This is what I'm thinking. Is the point that, look, if you guys really cared at all about Alan Henning, then you could have done a variety of different things. And I think this is what Moazzam did say, is that I don't need the incentive from any government or anything like that. We were already on, because I think he knew people who knew Alan Henning. I think he and a lot of Muslims who, whether they didn't know him, they felt motivated to get the innocent man released.
You stand up for justice. You stand up for what is right, and what is right is right, and what is wrong is wrong. It's clear.
So I think
there's nothing beyond that.
What he's demonstrated here is that actually Muslims have been doing what they feel their religion commands them to do, their morals command them to do, and it's actually the government that's failed its own people, especially Alan Henning, and the government has probably provoked ISIS, especially when they went and agreed to fly their jets and bomb, ISIS in different positions. I don't think that's gonna really get Alan Henning released if you're gonna go bomb them.
And Brother Asad kind of nailed it on their head there. He said that, you're calling for the release of Alan Henning, and at the same time you're dropping bombs over their head. Really,
please don't kill him. Please don't kill him.
But
even if we drop a bomb on you, please don't kill him.
So really, and he made the good point, which was, if it was, say, Prince Harry, who was captured by ISIS, would they be dropping bombs, or would they be paying millions of pounds, doing whatever they can, bending over backwards to get him
look
released?
at that. Look how people feel very suddenly patriotic or nationalistic when the royal family, when the this lady who married the prince and who's now having a child, everybody's like suddenly thinking this is our family, and they all get very behind the monarchy. And
you're forgetting that they're taking all your taxpayers' money and they're sitting on millions and millions of pounds while people are going homeless.
I fully agree.
But what's the point of the head of the state?
Just to make my point, what I'm trying to say is, when it's somebody close that you care about, then millions of pounds doesn't sound like much. If you really cared about saving their lives, as in the hypothetical scenario that Brother Asad Begg laid out for us, that you've just cited here with Prince Harry, if that had happened, I think that people would have said, give him the money and get him back.
And I think one thing, I know I've mentioned it several times before, but I keep coming back to the point about Dr. Abbas Khan. Mm-hmm. If you look at it, people who care for people, they will do whatever necessary to
secure their release.
His mother, look what she did, more than anything that the British government did. They wiped their hands clean of him, and they did more. She did more than anything to get him released. Likewise, that the families, other people will do anything. They'll bend over backwards to get their loved ones released. But at the same time, if the British government really did care for any of their British hostages, then they were doing exactly that.
And who killed Abbas Khan? Was it ISIS?
No, it was somebody who far greater than ISIS. Somebody who has killed
far worse,
who has tortured, who has raped, who has completely savaged his own people, and still continues to this day. And amazingly enough, he is killing every day. Yet you do not hear a single headline about Assad killing people. All you hear is ISIS this and ISIS that. And to be honest, I'm just sick and fed up of all of this. I'm just really frustrated, that this can be the case.
It's not going to make people start supporting ISIS. Sure, is people are not stupid. They're just going to say, better than them. Okay, especially if now you are sharing the same skies that Assad regime is flying its planes in up till today and dropping bombs on the Syrian people. Okay, the very reason why ISIS was born.
US are dropping bombs on innocent children. I've seen.
So there's one round of Syrian regime, Assad regime planes dropping bombs, and then there's another volley of bombs being dropped by the by the American regime. And we've got statistics here, which I'm not going to read fully to you, but the Syrian Network for Human Rights has confirmed that on the very first day of the airstrikes led by the American government and the UK and other allies, 28 civilians, including 4 children, 2 women, were killed. So this is really
and I'm guessing the standard US line with it, we regret the loss of innocent lives, but there's collateral damage and so forth. The same old Israeli rhetoric and
that's just the first day, bro. That is just the first day. So I think a lot of people out there who keep ranting on and on about ISIS, need to get it into their head that they are going to be responsible for what's the word I'm looking for irking and cheerleading the US and the UK government in going out there and bombing the life out of the Middle East once again. So these people have to show restraint. Like, if we disagree with ISIS, we do disagree with them for our own reasons, for our religious reasons, for our own differences with them, the way they've handled and the way they've showed disregard for this and that. This issue is not about ISIS, though. This is all about Assad. Okay, and if you're going there not having lifted a single finger or written a single word or spoken a single word against Assad all this time, you're going to go there and tag team with him. He goes in the ring, drops a few bombs from his aircraft, and then he tags you into the ring, and it's just like WWE. They're going in and dropping their bombs on the people, and they're all saying, "Yeah, we're all fighting terrorists here." Assad is saying, "We're fighting terrorists here," just like you Americans are.
The amazing logic that you have is that America went and bombed Iraq, and from that it created ISIS, and so now ISIS are there. So what do we do again? Let's go and bomb Iraq again. To what? What are we going to do? Eliminate ISIS now, is it? You went in there thinking, Al-Qaeda's there and you got weapons of mass destruction. And then after that, I bombs ISIS. You come in, let's bomb ISIS, and then suddenly something else is going to come out from it.
What is it?
It's just ridiculous.
I think I don't know if it was Einstein or whether it was Voltaire. He said insanity, I've mentioned this before, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result each time, when actually the same thing happens. So the last thing I wanted to mention before we kind of go to something slightly different, we'll come back on this issue of Syria, because there's just no getting away from it. But because you mentioned Moazzam, okay, who went out there to hold an academic investigation, really, okay. Maybe he took a generator out there. He doesn't deny doing that neither. All right. And he also went there for humanitarian purposes, to save the life of a person long before that person ever came to the news, long before Alan Hayne was even heard of by the British public. He went out there out of his own genuine goodwill, out of his Islamic obligation. So he went out there and he went to prison for this. He's been sent to prison for that. 8 months of his life. That's a good part of a year. He's lost, once again, the family that lost their father, their husband, for years in Guantanamo. The British government made him go through the same thing again. Why? Because he went to Syria. Well, guess what? Well, there's an American guy by the name of Jordan Matson. He says he's outraged by the brutality of the ISIS. But unlike virtually every other American, he decided to take on the militants head on and join the Kurdish troops to fight in Syria. Against the Syrians and the different groups like ISIS. So here's an American. He can go and travel. He can go and actually take part in combat, direct fighting and violence. Not non-lethal aid. Not I'm going there to save a hostage from the British public. Or I'm not going. I'm doing the investigation to produce a dossier on an academic piece of work. Nope, I'm going there to take up arms, and I'm going to kill some Syrians, some Iraqis as well. And he's able to do that. And there's a whole article on USA Today kind of hailing him as some sort of amazing hero. They're lionizing this guy. So this is the kind of hypocrisy and the double standard that the Muslim world has become fed up of. And Muslims don't have to turn to terrorism to kind of be able to criticize, to win the right to criticize and call it out for what it is, because it stinks. And Muslims ain't having none of that.
We've had too many Muslims being brown noses, unfortunately.
Yep, Uncle Tom's, they're everywhere, man. They're talking about Uncle Tom. How about Auntie Toms? We have a few Auntie Toms nowadays.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
So, one of the Django of the week I hear coming up.
Django of the week
I can hear them rattling.
Doing the entrance right now. We've got Yasmin Alibai Brown.
I've never heard of her in my life, to be honest.
I've heard of her name.
Is she somebody important or prominent in any way?
Certainly not. Her name is Alibai Brown.
Alibai. That's something like
she's Ali's brother, or it means she's got an alibi for a crime.
She is Ali's brother Ali.
that she didn't commit. and she's brown, and she forgot the word
brown
nose.
nose.
So, Yasmin Alibai Brown, and you won't believe
You can
the
tweet
kind
her
of
at,
groveling-
what is it? You can tweet her
Well,
at.
you could tweet her at Y_ALIBHAI. So that's Y_ALIBHAI.
Just a disclaimer: we don't encourage trolling of any sort.
Trolling's fine as long as you're not bullying or harassing people. Go troll them up, no problem, mate. Yeah. So a good bit of trolling can do nobody no harm. So as long as it's not illegal, of course we do not,
Advocate anything that is
advocate
illegal.
anything of that nature. So what Yasmin Alibai Brown said to, for us to honor her with Django as a nominee for Django of the Week. Well, this is what she says on one of her tweets just yesterday. She says, "We Muslims are damn lucky to be living in the UK. So say that often and say it loud." Let me read that again. She says, "We Muslims are damn lucky to be living in the UK. Say it often and say it loud." I talk about, I don't know what to say. My head was spinning from the level of inferiority complex, issues there. The level of bending over backwards here.
I just think she must have had a troubled upbringing. She must have had a very difficult life. She feels so,
insecure,
yeah, of course.
obliged to wear a flag on her, carry around with her and say, "I'm proud to be British, we love
Please accept me,
Don't
I'm
harm
one of
me,
you,
I'm one of you guys, that kind of thing." This is a sad state of Islamophobia in the UK, and this is a result of Islamophobia, because this woman, she don't feel safe without saying these type of words. She's not saying she don't feel safe. I can't see why else she would be out there saying it on a public platform that I'm so lucky to be in the UK, and I'm saying it out loud, and I'm going to say it often.
It's a result of Islamophobia, and it fuels Islamophobia.
It certainly does, because this kind of groveling, this kind of, as you said, brown nosing.
And then they'd say, this is the kind of Muslims that we think we love. This is the Muslims we like, people who talk like this.
Exactly.
Why can't all you Muslims talk like that?
What kind of replies has she got? Well, let's have a look. There's been the usual kind of racists coming on and bigots saying, "Yeah, good on you, Yasmin. That's the kind of Muslims we like." For example, there are a few more brown noses. Here is Tamim Sadiq Ali. He says, "To live in a nation without being part of it is no longer an option." Interesting. And then a brother called Osama Mizui, he says that the UK is also damn lucky to have its Muslim population be part of it. Say that out loud and say that often. Then brother Jahan says, directly to Alibai Brown's tweet, he asks, does that include Muslims who've been tortured, illegally detained, women attacked for hijab, and elderly beaten for going to the mosque? So these are some of the hard realities that the Muslims are facing. I think those Muslims... does he?
I think he does. His tweets sounds a bit more... less brown. No, this is what Muslims should be saying. I don't know if you follow Frankie Ball on his Twitter, but he definitely has always come back hitting hard, especially at people like Obama and David Cameron. And he says it as it is, very clear, plain and simple. And you got these brown noses who are just kind of popping up and just.
And there's this guy called Gandhi. He comes out saying, "Only immigrants like you, Yasmin Alibai Brown, you ought to be grateful and thankful to those who hosted you and took you in. We, on the other hand, we were born here. So what have we got to be thankful for? We are British."
Well, was that Mahatma?
That is the Mahatma Gandhi. According to him, it says V Gandhi, to be honest with you. So there's a few more, and then you can see the racists, come in strong force here, telling people to, using their obscene language, the F word and everything.
Obscene language, you just say?
Obscene language, I did say, yes. I didn't use any, but I did refer.
Maybe that might lead me on to...
That brings us to Django of the Week number 2.
Or was it number 3? Because we talked about number 1 already.
Number 3,
no, he was number 3 on the list, but we say number 2 since we've kind of...
we've just stumbled across obscene language.
He is a according to some, the so-called imam.
A lawyer. He is a master of many, many arts. Okay, he is an imam. He's a human rights worker. He is a lawyer and
he holds a PhD
lawyer.
And
he's doing
things,
a PhD in Sharia law.
But his name is
and many other hidden talents. By the way,
the
he's
one,
a journalist as well.
The one, the only, the imam. You know, Mufassil Islam.
And a revolutionary, by the way.
So you may be asking, who is this great man? I've never heard of him before. Just like to inform you that I never heard of him before either until the other day.
Me neither.
Then I watched the video.
These hidden geniuses.
That he had recorded of himself and put it up on Facebook.
And he actually records himself quite often.
So he does these candid kind of videos, which, in all honesty, don't get many views. But this one really top of the pops.
But like Ali Bai Brown, he's one of those guys who wasn't born here and he wasn't raised here. So basically what I'm trying to say is he's got quite a strong, thick, broken English accent, okay?
Let's just say this. He uses...
some very colourful.
He's opening. Well, there's only one colourful word which he uses several times. By his opening sentence is ISIS, and then he just goes off on one.
Beep, beep, beep,
so you could kind of put it together, and I'm not really encouraging anybody to watch the video, but
I don't
maybe
know who
curiosity.
gave him his imam certificate.
But I'm not too sure.
Which mosque he does the khutbah at? I can't imagine what his
khutbahs would sound like.
Yeah, sermons would sound like.
All I can say is that video. I need to feel because it's disgusting. You can just laugh at the same time. Because
at the same time, it was disgusting. It was like
I don't know. It's just amazing how you can have such contrasting emotions.
Somebody,
put together.
I think, replied or commented on his videos, like he's saying, like, my mum heard this guy in a beard using this bad language, and she was saying, wasn't there anybody there next to him to give him a slap on his face? That's what the aunties are thinking.
And basically, he just went on a rant about ISIS, saying how they are disgusting.
And by all means, go rant. But what was the need?
But he did call himself. He did say, he said, we the imams and we the scholars and we the British and we the Americans and we the Turkish. We are going to bomb you and we are going to do this and do that.
He really does take himself.
So I'm just really, he did kind of. Go on a tantrum. I think it's a kind of,
And he didn't make, what's the word I'm saying? He wasn't trying to, beat around the bush again. He titled his video with the F word.
Yeah, he titled the video with the F word, but he wrote F hash or hashtag, or we want to call it hash. Okay, last time I checked, the word he was trying to kind of use had only 4 letters, and
this one he used had 5.
He had 5, so I'm kind of bemused as to he doesn't even know how to.
So there's like it's kind of basically he's a freshie and he's acting like a gangster on YouTube.
And he just couldn't stop
Facebook?
Swearing. Sorry, I'm just
That's what I'm saying. He's a G, bro. These are the Facebook thugs.
The amount of come on, not even the thugs you see that we know of use that much foul language in any.
He couldn't say it properly. Even when if you're gonna swear, you gotta do it in a proper way. And we definitely do not promote this. This is un-Islamic behavior. It's totally inappropriate, and certainly for somebody who describes himself as an imam, for him to be conducting himself in this way, I just find that appalling and completely, inexcusable, to be honest with you. Yes, it was hilarious at one point, but then it was just...
He just went... I think he just... there were other people who then kind of commented on his Facebook post saying, you don't really know the guy, I've known him for a long time, and I don't think this video does justice to him.
Complete utter rubbish.
All I can just say is, sorry, you make a video like that, you've just shot yourself in the foot. You've just blown your career out the window. Next time you're on any TV or radio, Mufassir Islam,
he's got some sort
are you
of
the
fan
one who
base?
swore several times? That's what we remember.
He's obviously got some sort of fan base where his fanboys are coming out and saying, he's actually a decent guy, don't be...
Well, I'm sorry, I never heard of him before.
Yeah.
And if I hear of him from now on after, all I would know is that, you're the guy that swore.
That's it.
Several times.
Yeah. You're the imam that swore.
They're not even properly. Nor could you spell it properly. You just
made a fool of yourself, bro. Don't do that next time. So I know you're listening because definitely we've got you down as one of our Django of the week. And I'll be honest with you, Mr. Mufassil, is that his name? Mufassil, I'm telling you, man, you're about to win the Django of the week. You keep this up, you're going to be winning the Django of the week.
Week in,
okay.
Week out.
If you really want to, make amends, come onto our studio. Tell your listeners to tune in, and you put the record straight. If we say something that don't reflect correctly on you, come into the studio and set the record straight. Okay,
right.
That's him. Do not play that track.
Do
Whatever
not play.
you do,
Producer, do not
put
play
the volume
that
down.
video.
That is the first word that comes out of that video.
Literally, he just says ISIS, and then that's it. He just goes straight into it. So anybody who is curious and wants to watch it, although we don't recommend that you do, just basically
please do not.
I think I would just suggest you just turn the microphone off and maybe lip read. It might be easier for you.
What a comedian! What a comedian he thought he was.
So, since we're on the whole swag of Django of the week, we might as well just
bring
finish
out
off
the
third
Django.
Django, kind of complete the set.
Who the third Django?
Who is the third Django?
Mr. Producer,
you say.
Is your mic even on today?
I don't think he is. He's just like shaking his head. No, but he is the prominent, the very well known.
They're shameless. The most disgraced.
Yeah, you can say all of that as well. Mr. Bill,
the most racist.
Bill
Maher.
I was going to say, do you want to get that Mufassil guy to comment on this as well?
Listen to the sound of the quality on his microphone. You see, we get all the shoddy microphones. He's got that top quality microphone.
Just come straight in there.
Just the crisp sound of his voice. That's reserved exclusively just for the producer. Anyway, what were you saying, sir?
I was going to say, do you want to get that Mufassil guy to comment on this Bill Maher guy?
One of the Django's to comment on another Django.
Why not?
Well, go ahead. I don't know how you're going to get him to do that.
But that would be quite interesting if that was possible. But I'm sure most of our listeners have hopefully seen the video where he has many panelists on the show, Bill Maher, and one of them is the well-known actor Ben Affleck. Maybe not so well known for his films, but he's still well known. And they're talking about obviously ISIS and other kind of just generally the whole point of it is he's completely downplaying. There's no real such thing as Islamophobia. These guys are just saying we're just talking the truth about Islam and this is what Muslims are. Are we going to actually play any of the clips? From
yes,
this,
we are. I think the Mr. Producer is about to shuffle the tracks just for us so that it's ready to go. Once he's done, we're going to play it for our listeners.
But I must say, indeed, Ben Affleck does. Really does
a splendid job, a
sterling
job.
I must say, he does a sterling job. And it's your humanity to know that. Hang on a minute, this is just purely wrong. This one-sided.
This is clearly wrong.
Anybody who's literally got their eyes open can see clearly the double standards, the bigotry.
And I'm not fooled by any moment that Ben Affleck is somehow sponsored by any Muslims to go out there and say those kind of things, or somehow he's got any personal interest, i.e., say for example, he's not got any family members that are Muslim or anything like that. He's just saying it. Why, as you just said, Brother Khabbab, it's just from the humanity that every human being is instilled with. Okay, when they are sent to this earth. Okay, this is part of our fitrah. Not the whole fitrah, but it's part of our fitrah to have this concept, this moral compass, this concept of right and wrong, and he can clearly see it for what it is.
It's not just that. Even if you watch the video, if you obviously can't watch it now, we're going to be playing the audio, but if you've got your own chance when you watch it, you see enraged. He's actually very much vexed.
That's right.
And he's just completely, very much angry of how can people be actually saying this and actually thinking this is acceptable.
Mr. Producer, we're ready to go.
The thing we want to talk about, of course, is that you and I have been trying to make the case, I have anyway, that liberals need to stand up for liberal principles. This is what I said on last week's show. Obviously, I got a lot of hate for it, but all I'm saying is that liberal principles like freedom of speech, freedom to practice any religion you want without fear of violence, freedom to leave a religion, equality for women, equality for minorities, including homosexuals. These are liberal principles that liberals applaud for, but then when you say in the Muslim world this is what's lacking, they get upset.
Yeah. Well, liberals have really failed on the topic of theocracy. They'll criticize white theocracy. They'll criticize Christians. They'll still get agitated over the abortion clinic bombing up into 1984. But when you want to talk about the treatment of women and homosexuals and free thinkers and public intellectuals in the Muslim world, I would argue that liberals have failed us. And The crucial point of confusion. Yeah, thank you.
Thank God you're here.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the crucial point of confusion is that we have been sold this meme of Islamophobia, where every criticism of the doctrine of Islam gets conflated with bigotry toward Muslims as people.
Right.
And that is it's intellectually ridiculous. Even it gets.
So hold on. Are you the person who understands the officially codified doctrine of Islam? You're the interpreter of that, so you can say, "Well, this is."
I'm actually well educated on this topic.
I'm asking you. So you're saying you're saying that Islamophobia is not a real thing. That if you're critical, right?
Well, denying that certain people are bigoted against Muslims as people, and that's a problem.
Big of you.
But
why are you so hostile about this? It's gross. It's racist.
It's not. But it's so not.
It's like saying
it's so not. You're
shifty Jew.
You're not listening
Absolutely
to
not.
what we are saying.
You guys are saying if you want to be liberals, believe in liberal principles like freedom of speech, like we are endowed by our forefathers with an inalienable rights, like all men are created equal.
Ben, we have to be able to criticize bad ideas. And
of course we do. No liberal doesn't want to criticize bad ideas.
But Islam at this moment is the motherlode of bad ideas.
Jesus.
So we have
That's
ideas
just a fact.
like blasphemy.
It is an ugly
apostasy.
It's basic liberal
let me
principle
unpack
of
it.
tolerance.
Let me unpack it.
But not for intolerance.
No, of course not. But the picture you're painting is to some extent true, but is hugely incomplete. It is certainly true that plenty of fanatics and jihadis are Muslim, but the people who are standing up to them, Malala, incredible Muhammad Ali Dadak in Iran, in prison for 9 years for speaking up for Christians. A friend that I had in Pakistan who was shot this year, Rashid Rahman, for defending people accused of apostasy.
Or how about the more than a billion people who aren't fanatical, who don't punish women, who just want to go to the store,
wait a second. Wait a second.
But don't do any of the things that you're saying all Muslims
wait a second.
stereotyping.
Wait a second.
Things, and you're painting the whole religion with that.
No, let's get one reason they don't get exposed is because they were afraid to speak out, because it's the only religion that acts like the mafia that will fucking kill you if you say the wrong thing, draw the wrong picture, or write the wrong book.
So you do have. Okay, well, I think we better give some apologies out there for that profanity I've heard, and we should have really given you, brothers and sisters and listeners out there, a warning that this would be some terrible profanity or bad language used by Bill Maher, and this is one of the reasons why he is Django of the Week nominee, just like for the same reason that Mufassil is also Django of the Week nominee this week. So it's all kind of somehow linked into from brown nosing to bad language to some even more bad language. To be honest with you, even Bill Maher would be quite embarrassed if Mufassil let one of those videos rip on him. So that was a short clip. The full clip is 10 minutes long, actually 13 minutes long, and it is very good to understand that the way you behave or the way you respond to racists. You heard Sam Harris there, a self-proclaimed expert and terrorism analyst and that kind of nonsense that they add to their penchant of titles. Him saying that Islam is the motherlode of bad ideas, and then
I think it does later on in that clip kind of makes the clearest point, which is that I think we've killed, and we referring to America, have killed more Muslims than they've killed us. We've invaded by a hell of a lot more. Yeah. And he goes, we've invaded more countries than they've invaded ours by a lot more. And it's just clear, basic, simple facts. You keep on talking about all these things.
There's another commentator out on the panel as well who says, well, look at Indonesia, look at Malaysia, look at Turkey. These are not, there's no ISIS over there. Why are you talking about beheading? And look at Bangladesh, Pakistan, India. They're some of the biggest, I think, first or second biggest population in the whole. Indonesia's got the biggest Muslim population in the world. Bangladesh, and I think has got second or third largest Muslim population in the world. I think India or Pakistan, one of them is second largest population in the world. Okay, so these are the biggest Muslim population in the world, and there is none of this stuff happening. And Ben makes this case as well that and even what's his name? He takes another analogy and says if some bombers bombed us and they happen to be Filipino in their authenticity, then would we then blame the country of Philippines, or would you just blame the bombers? You just said these bombers are bad. They committed a crime. You didn't say, the Philippines is a place, is a people that believe in bombings. You just keep it confined to what is the perpetrators of the crime. And these are the people doing it.
One of the things I find amazing, how trying to say, Islamophobia is not a real thing, it's a load of rubbish. We're just actually talking really, the religion is just all bad, and we're just exposing that, and it's not Islamophobia.
I was going to say, can you imagine, if we got up and said, there's no such thing as anti-Semitism?
That's exactly the point I was coming on to.
Or it's okay when we are anti-Semitic. And then the audience laugh.
No, it's okay. When we talk, it's not anti-Semitic. It's just.
Is this like a laughing issue? Is this not serious? So when Jews get battered in the face by Nazis in Germany, was that a laughing matter? Or when African Americans were getting battered.
When in all honesty,
up till today, by the way, but mostly in the 80s, and since the 60s and the 50s even. So when the people were getting beaten, there's a history and bad blood of that. When we're talking about racism, it's not a small matter. When we're talking about Islamophobia, it's not a joke. People are losing their lives, in America and in the UK or in the so-called land of the free and the Western Hemisphere.
And we're seeing a very big uprising in
I feel it was just
in Australia as well, in terms of
in Australia and in many other parts of Europe. Many other parts of Europe. Who was the Rising Dawn? Where are these guys coming from? Was it in Europe? Was it Denmark or? Then you've got in French, you've got Le Pen in France, and then you've got what's the other guy's name? The one with the funny hair with the yellow.
And it's funny enough. These are neo-Nazis. A lot of these are far right, bordering neo-Nazis. Many are clear neo-Nazis. And like
that's why Bill Maher making fun of liberals. He's saying liberals say this, liberals say that. Liberals are jokes, basically. Who are the ones who are criticizing liberals? The ones on the right.
Exactly.
And that's where the Nazis come from.
And one of the clear things here, which is that we're talking about the Jews, what happened, were people happy? Actually, a lot of the people in the UK and America were happy when they saw Hitler eliminating Jews because they couldn't stand the Jews themselves, and many of them were like that. Obviously, there were others who stood up and said, "No, we need to stop Hitler, not because Jews." And the thing, they did not get involved because Jews were getting slaughtered. Because they keep on using this pretext that we went in there, he was killing somebody. He killed Jews for years. They did nothing. They only did it when
wrong. It was wrong what he was doing.
It was wrong, and they did
torturing
nothing.
Them, gassing
the only
them.
time they did it is when he started to go, hang on a minute.
What you're saying is the Americans didn't do nothing until...
They did nothing. Americans, even you were talking about the Western, the Allies, they did nothing until other neighboring countries started to fall, and the spread of fascism was...
Getting very close.
It was getting closer to home. Hang on a minute. Now we better be.
German planes were bombing UK. They were on the border with Normandy and coming. They approached all of France.
When they took Austria and they took Hungary and they thought, okay, now it's getting too much.
But
while all those years in Germany, when they had set up the concentration camps, when Russia they had been killing,
was close to 40.
They didn't give a damn. They thought, hang on a minute. Good riddance to these guys. So it's just pure hypocrisy, pure.
It was just self-preservation.
And now they're going to say, we saved the Jews from being slaughtered, or we had to stop.
We care about anti-Semitism. They don't give a damn about anti-Semitism. Okay, and so this Ben Affleck video, go watch it on YouTube. It's an eye opener, and it will tell us.
It's not the first time Ben Affleck
gives us confidence because a lot of Muslims today, because of the climate of fear that is created by the media, by the police, and by the government. Okay, this climate of criminalization, and this is made a lot of Muslims feel insecure. Oh my goodness, time is of the essence. So this has made Muslims very insecure and very fearful, and so they are not able to express their feelings. And this speech about freedom falls on deaf ears because Muslims don't know what that is. Muslims feel that if they speak their mind and express how they feel, then they will be criminalized. And you don't have to say things that are criminal, okay? And we shouldn't think things that are criminal. But we should be able to articulate our arguments the way in many of these people. And I think, was it last week, the producer and I, we talked about it, and it was Reza Aslan, and he's the one who did a rebuttal of this video, actually, and he describes how this is all a ridiculous nonsense. This is just, pure. He says that is the very definition of bigotry. That is what Reza Aslan had to say about the video of Bill Maher. It wasn't actually this video. It was actually he was on CNN. It was the previous video that Bill Maher makes reference to in his video that we just played today, where he says, he did this video and he got a lot of hate for it. Apparently, that's the video that Reza Aslan, and on CNN he went and commented on that. And even the CNN reporters, and strangely, an African American CNN reporter was saying, "Oh, come on, let's be realistic here. There are a lot of bad things happening in the Muslim world. Duh and no. What do you mean? What's that? No, it's not. There ain't no beheadings happening in Turkey, not in Indonesia." And he he educated those people on CNN. He really taught those people a lesson.
The word that was used was he de-schooled them.
He what?
De-schooled them.
He de-schooled them.
That's a new word that I've learned today. Wow. Our producer does come up with the most brightest of
expressions.
Indeed.
So we got to wrap up because we got a lot of things we took already, and we've already had now the 3 Django's. That's normally where we finish. So the 3 Django's, a reminder to you, hashtag Django of the week. The 3 of the nominees, they are Yasmin Ali by Brown. And we're going to come to that. We've got number 2, Bill Maher. And number 3
is currently leading the polls.
Currently, Mufassir is in the lead because he's got a couple of extra votes compared to...
I'm not going to vote for him, not until I've heard it myself.
Okay, that still leaves the 2 of us in the studio, and I'm feeling quite warm towards Mufassir on this one.
I kind of think he's already won it in my mind, unfortunately.
I think he took the cake on this one. I mean, only when you watch... Astaghfirullah, do not watch this thing, okay? But if you had the misfortune and you were gullible like I was, and we just pressed play on the video, then you'd realize that this man, he deserves Django of the week. That's how bad he is. I mean... Bill Maher, I'm sure we'll hear from this racist again sometime soon. I'm sure we'll hear from Yasmin Ali by Brown. There are brown noses like her up and down the country. Okay, well, but Mufassir, he's a rare window of opportunity for Django of the week. You may never hear from him again, you see, because he's an unknown kind of guy.
Let's give the underdogs a
fighting chance. That's what I think, And this is his opportunity to make his name for being the Django that he is. So Django of the week goes to...
You can tweet him at Mufassili.
That's Mufassi Mufassili. And if you're listening, Mufassir, you need to come to the studio. Before that, we're going to give you a bar of soap to chew on, and then you can talk
Wash
on
your
air.
mouth first. No profanity on our show.
That's correct. Even though Bill Maher somehow slipped the slippery fish.
He is a very fishy character. And
we'll get him.
We'll get him. Till next time, Bill. Till next time. Mr. Producer, you got an agenda of your own. What is going on? What you
I don't know. I mean, I'm just watching this lovely picture of this iPhone 6 just melting away in the background. I mean, it's on the side of the table, but it's got like 3-4 creases in it.
Oh my goodness!
I think this is a very, very long.
Yeah, this is the it is the hashtag BendGate fiasco.
Is it BendGate? Sorry,
Bend with a D. BendGate.
Okay, right.
Well, it becomes bent once it's bent, I guess. It's certainly not straight. Excuse the pun. So, it's BendGate. And why did you bring this up today? Again, one more time. I got a little piece for you. But anything you want to add today?
I mean, I think everyone's got this idea in their head that this is just
by the way,
publicity.
By the way, we've got a iPhone 6 Plus just yesterday or day before yesterday. Don't tell anybody. Well, you see, actually, my wife, they really like Apple products. We've got an iPad and stuff. And, like you said, I'm sure some of you guys got Apple Macs machines and stuff like that. But I will be telling you, definitely, if that thing starts bending on its own, I will be reporting. So I'll be honest with you, I'm not very I do not like the design of that device. Not impressed.
Well, I mean,
and it's huge. Did I tell you? It
Apple
is massive.
They're saying that apparently this is people that have gone out and bought it, and the die-hard slaves that
the homeless bunch.
Yeah, I mean, they'll buy an iPhone, and even if the phone's not working, they'll say it's a fantastic phone.
That's right.
The slave. That's a typical.
Just like before the iPhone 6 was actually released. These zombies were given a iPhone 5S, which they themselves had in their pocket, by the way. And they were asked, like, sir, what's your name? My name's Mike. And yeah, what phone do you own? I've got an iPhone 5S. Okay, here's the iPhone 6 in our hand, and it's just an iPhone 5S actually. And the guy's like, wow, this feels like this is much lighter. Let me turn it on. It's brighter and it's faster. And wow, I can't wait to. You guys are awesome, man. You got the iPhone 6. This is like epic.
Duh. We had all of this
Apple,
before.
People are under an assumption that everybody's saying, oh, if my iPhone bends, Apple will exchange it for a new one. But I think Apple's made a statement saying that
no sir, no siree. We will. Yes, they have.
Oh, let's hear it. I need to hear this.
No, I've got the latest. Let's see what you've
I'm just saying that Apple said that if there are any evidence to show that it's bended out of its own kind of self,
meaning that if you've put it in your pocket and it's bent, that's not their problem.
Yeah.
You bent it. Your pocket bent it. Your pocket is an extension of you, therefore you bent it.
I think they've short-changed their iSlave followers.
But that's what you get. That's a feature. That's a added benefit of That's exactly how they will explain it to me. Like, this is the kind of top class customer service we get. You don't get that anywhere else. This is exclusive to being an iZombie, basically. That's how they like to spin things around, even when it's not in their favor and it's to their disadvantage. Those guys are good at the marketing. I don't know where they get it from, if they've actually been to some of these training programs from Apple, but they know how to make even the weakest point of their device or the Apple marketing and spin that into a great story.
Do you think we can get an iSlave on here?
I'll tell you what I did was, when I was in the store, and I actually raised it with the attendee. I said, look, we've been hearing a lot of reports. I've seen a lot of videos as well. These devices, they bend. If ours were to bend, what does Apple say about covering repairs and replacements under warranty? And he just flatly tried to deny without saying it doesn't happen. He was going around the idea, well, how would it bend? And well, if you bend it, I thought, no. I already explained to you, if it were to bend from normal, acceptable use as is expected from a consumer with their smartphone, if it bends under those circumstances, are you guys going to reimburse us? Well, to be honest with you, you should take out Apple Care, because if you take Apple Care, he's still trying to sell me stuff, get my money and all of that stuff. I just thought to myself, these guys have not been trained. They're not
Apple geniuses, aren't they?
They're geniuses in their own right, in their own minds. That's what I'm telling you. Only to the iZombies are these guys geniuses, because I said, I literally asked him, have you got and did you guys get any training on this? Because what's your higher ups saying about this? And he simply said, look, all I can advise you to do, sir, is take out Apple Care. And apparently, even after taking out Apple Care, you would probably still have to shell out some money, very small amount, but you will still shell out some money to get that fixed or replaced. Yeah, you get another bendy phone, Bendgate. But that's not the interesting thing. Here's the thing. Apple actually has done something very funny. This is how sensitive Apple can get. And we'll be sure to have, and if you think we're being biased here, throw us a few articles about Google or about Microsoft or BlackBerry for that matter. Then we will cover it for you. Okay, that's just the way it is. Okay, today we're talking about Bendgate because that's just really the popular thing to talk about today. And what's happened is there's a German company, should I say a magazine? Okay, they're called Computer Bild, B-I-L-D. That might be a German word. So this German magazine, what they've done is they did the bend test, okay, on video to see if it's really true that this thing is very fragile or not. And they bent it on camera, and then they tried to bend a competitor device, namely the Galaxy Note 3. And it did not bend. I mean, it bent while they were trying to do it, and then it went back to place immediately because plastic is that's the quality of plastic. It goes back to its original form. So it said, look, so applying the same pressure to the Samsung device didn't really bend it, but the Apple device has bent, and it stays bent. It completely wrecked it, to be honest with you. So guess what? Apple sent these guys gave them a phone call. Guess what they said? Said, you guys at your magazine, Computer Build, will no longer be welcome in any of our tech shows. We will not be sending you guys any more units for you to review, and so on, so forth. Basically, being very nasty, very arrogant, to be honest with you. And it told them, basically just told them, look, you guys can get lost with, you're not welcome. Apple doesn't like you anymore. So these guys wrote to Tim Cook from their magazine, and he said that, dear Mr. Cook, this is actual words, sorry. Dear Mr. Cook, is this really how your company wants to deal with media that provide your customers with profound tests of your products? Do you really think that with a withdrawal of Apple's love and affection could have an intimidating effect on us? Are you trying to intimidate us basically by withdrawing your so-called love? Luckily, we do not have to rely on devices that you guys provide us with. Luckily, a lot of readers are willing to pay money for our magazine to keep us independent. Ouch. So we are able to buy devices to do our tests anyway. Even devices of manufacturers that seem to fear Computer Build's independent judgment, i.e. Apple. You guys fear our judgment. So you can't really intimidate us. So even if we are quite dismayed about Apple's the reaction, we won't give up on our principles, says this letter to Tim Cook from Computer Build. We will continue our incorruptible tests that have the same high reputation in the German media landscape as Apple has for its products. Okay? And that's basically, there's a little bit more, and it ends the letter there. I think that's a really good response. And it shows that you cannot be bullying us, or you can't buy our support. You can't be telling us, oh, if you say nice things about our device and our product, then you can come to our tech shows and you get exclusive access to, to some of our devices. We'll send you out a little device for you to do a video review of. These guys are saying, look, we don't rely on Apple for our popularity and for our money and our income. Our readers pay for the service that we provide them. Okay? And you cannot corrupt us. So that's really the final story for the Security Council. As I did say, and if you're following our tweets on Twitter, that's at Middle Path Radio, you would have heard that we did give you guys a heads up warning that we'll be talking about a number of serious issues, and we'll be talking about some not so serious issues, and we did use hashtag Bengate. So that's a roundup for this week. Alhamdulillah, we talked about Syria, we talked about the American airstrikes, who seeks to gain from this, what is happening to Assad. We talked about Moazzam Begg. We talked about some serious matters pertaining to that. We talked about the execution of Alan Henning, whether there was more that the British government could have done. Whose responsibility was it to get Alan Henning released, who's lost his life now? And I would put it fairly and squarely into the court of the British government, who decided to go and join the Americans in bombing Iraq and Syria. Okay, we talked about a number of things, and we switched it up a little bit, and we did the Django of the Week, and I remind everybody that Mufassil Islam is Django of the Week.
Indeed it
is.
Django. And you can see that on our Twitter if you want to follow on Twitter and catch up with this
Congratulations, Mufassil.
famous man for his foul-mouthed, disgusting rant on ISIS.
There you go. That would be the end of this week's show. I hope you brothers and sisters enjoyed it. Inshallah, join us next week, same time, every Tuesday, 10 p.m. on Middle Path Radio. This is the Security Council
signing out.
Assalamu alaikum.
In a world overrun by neocon warmongers, and with the mass media in the pockets of the cabal elite, there remains one bastion of truth amidst the confusion. One beacon of light shining through the murky fog of spin and Islamophobic propaganda. That's right. It's the NP Radio Security Council. The final frontier in the fight for freedom and fairness. I give you the Security Council.
أبدا لن نحيد أبدا لن نحيد أبدا لن نحيد عن خطى الإيمان دربنا درب قويم دربنا درب قويم بالهدى القرآني أبدا لن نحيد أبدا لن نحيد أبدا لن نحيد عن خطى الإيمان دربنا درب قويم دربنا درب قويم بالهدى القرآني سائر في طريق الحق يا جند الله.